let's go back to the whole sexual maturity thing. So, they don't reach sexual maturity until 150 years old. But once they finally reach that age, they get to go to Greenland Shark prom and make an embarrassing memory behind the sea bushes. What happens next? For decades, scientists had an assumption, based on what we know about other sharks. Okay, per pregnancy, they probably have something like 10 pups per pregnancy. See, that's a risky number though, for such an animal. That's the problem with waiting until 150 years old before breaking your chastity ring, is that, random events happen. They've always happened. Even now, sure, there's a lot more human activity and the like, random stuff happens. So to wait that long, to risk every single day a random event killing a Greenland shark, means that having only 10 pups per pregnancy, when I don't know what the survival rate is to get to sexual maturity, but I think it's probably not that high. Having only 10 pups per pregnancy, that honestly leaves the chance of long-term population growth as pretty small. So it's a good job that that initial estimate was far and away wrong. There's recent research that was done that was examining caught Greenland sharks, finding that they can have about 200 to 300 eggs in their ovaries. 200 to 300. Possibly when they get older, they're able to carry more eggs, like many fish do as well. Especially because they found one shark carrying 650 ova. 650. Do you know how big these eggs are? Every single egg is the size of a goose egg. We're not talking little chicken egg, we're not talking a quail's egg, we're talking a goose egg. 650. Do you know how heavy those ovaries were? With 650 goose eggs in it, 80 kilograms. That's more than I weigh. It's less like a pregnancy, more like something you'd find on MTV in 2006. This teenage 160-year-old just gave birth to 600 babies, but where is the father? We don't actually know how long Greenland shark pregnancies last. That's another one of these facts similar to the one about the age, that when you read, 10 cool facts about the Greenland shark, watch Mojo type stuff, it'll often say, oh, they can be pregnant for up to 18 years, which is not really the truth of what... obviously it could end up being true, but we don't know. There was a research paper which looked at a number of things regarding the Greenland sharks and the reproductive cycle, and it just made an assumption. It didn't base it in data. It was vibes only research, and it just sort of said, based on what we know about other sharks, yeah, somewhat like 8 to 18 years seems fair. But yeah, well, it wasn't based on anything, unfortunately, so we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is that the shark with the longest gestation rate is the fin shark, which has a gestation rate period of about 3.5 years. That's only bettered by one other animal in all of Animal Kingdom, the alpine salamander, which has a gestation period of about 4.5 years. Now, from what we know about the Greenland shark, which is that it does everything as slow as possible, it's very likely that they have a gestation period 5 years and up. Who knows how far? Could be 18 years. Where are they born? We don't know. We've never seen any evidence of where Greenland sharks are born. But almost certainly, from what we do know, they're not born anywhere near Greenland. Much like their namesake nation, their name is a lie. Greenland isn't green, and Greenland sharks are not from Greenland. There was a comprehensive study that studied catch data from about 1,600 Greenland sharks across the North Atlantic over a long period of time, essentially looking at where were they picked up, whether they were picked up on purpose or by accident, simply where were they found. The study found that neither pregnant females nor newborn pups had ever been recorded in the fjords or around the continental shelf of the higher Arctic. And the best we've found in terms of young Greenland sharks, these were recorded typically around the mid-Atlantic ridge in the Erminger Sea, south of Iceland. But then it gets even a bit more strange. See, I guess scientists have discovered what you could call a creche or a nursery for Greenland sharks. That's an area which I think is pronounced Skagerrak, which is the area, that bit, you look at a map between sort of Norway Denmark and Sweden. They seem to spend their time in Skagerrak until they hit about 2 meters long. Yeah, we're talking probably 100, 150 years of growing time in there. It's very rare to find adults there. The adults don't stick around and parent them. It really is. They just sort of drop them off at daycare. And then say, okay, stay here for 100 years. I'm going getting a pack of seaweed cigarettes. A Greenland shark might be born around the mid-Atlantic ridge, spend its teenage century in Scandinavia, and then later migrate up into the Arctic. Who do you think eats the Greenland shark? They have basically no natural predators. Really, humans are probably the closest thing you've got to a predator of the Greenland sharks. We did hunt them pretty extensively in the past, whether you're talking indigenous communities in the Arctic or the more industrialized nations, especially around World War II. So, I mentioned about their liver oil. So their liver oil, it's very nutritious, you know, big on omega-3, big on vitamin A. You can still buy it today, you know, for health benefits. It's much more expensive than other fish oils. And the oil could be used for other things. It was used for lamps, engine oils. Oh, and they realised it could be used to make dynamite. So that was why during World War II they hunted a lot of Greenland sharks, because they were like, we can turn these 800-year-old things with worms in their eyes into dynamite. So Greenland sharks helped win World War II, I guess. Yay.
Wait a minute! You didn't learn how World War II ended! We won!
But let's get to the meat. You see, their flesh contains really high levels of urea and trimethylene oxide. It doesn't make for good eating though. Historical accounts from across the Arctic describe a phenomenon known as getting shark drunk. You see, all these toxic chemicals in the meat produce a deeply, deeply unpleasant drunken haze, causing neurological symptoms, stumbling and slurred speech, hallucinations, and even temporary paralysis. In Greenland and Iceland, where there is a tradition of eating the Greenland shark, in Iceland they call it hokol, and the only way to do that safely is to bury it. They call it fermented shark because they bury it, they drain the blood, they dry it, they hang it, and they bury it, and this process can take up to a year to make it safe. People wonder how we discovered things like, oh, how did you get milk from cows? But no, this is the real thing I want to know. Who saw someone eating the flesh of a Greenland shark, start having hallucinations and paralysis, and then said, it's worth another go, right? Especially because it is one of the worst tastes you will ever experience. Anthony Bordain himself called it the single worst, most disgusting and terrible thing he'd ever eaten.
That is, I think, the word unspeakably nasty.
Despite this, it is considered very much a traditional delicacy, especially in Iceland. This brings me to my own personal story with the shark. Yes, I'm a hardcore vegan who has eaten a bit of an endangered species. I know. This hopefully will be setting some of that right again, okay? But here's my story with it. So, I worked on boats in Iceland for quite some time, and my company was doing a private tour, a very fancy private tour. Or, you know, people in suits and waiters walking around with fancy little foods on plates, serving salmon, haddock, cheese, a lock of Björk's hair, just the kind of things you eat every day in Iceland. I refuse them all. I'm much too professional. I'm at work. I'm guiding. I'm watching for whales. I'm watching for animals. I'm talking about whatever I'm talking about. I'm keeping professional. But then there's a period when not much has happened on the sea. And a waiter comes around. And the little pieces, little kind of yellowy, pinky, white pieces of hokol, of shark. And the waiter comes around and offers it. Nothing's happened in the ocean. Sure, why not? Why not? I take it, I put it in my mouth. Basically, right at the moment, I pop it in my mouth before I've closed my mouth and begun to absorb the flavours. At that moment, a whale, I think it was a minke whale, pops up at the very bow of the boat. So I've like got my, whale appears, automatic mode. I flip on the microphone to tell everyone, there's a whale in front of the boat, let's go see the whale. That's the intention. What really happens is, after all this then, after all we've talked about, why does the Greenland shark matter? At all. Why does it matter? After all, they're basically deep sea ancient aliens that have been around since before Isaac Newton invented gravity. They're as far from humans as you could possibly imagine. First of all, this over-emotional bleeding heart says that every living thing that has ever lived and will ever live has an intrinsic value, and life means value, and we should never need any more than that. Do you have any idea just how few animals connect the deep sea to the surface? It's so few. Nutrient cycling is so impossibly important. So having these few real proper links that bring nutrients, whether that's through their waste, whether that's through what they've eaten, whether that's through them dying themselves, that nutrient cycling, over 2,000 meters of nutrient cycling they're able to provide is hugely, massively important. And frankly, the biological insanity that we've learned today means that humans stand to benefit so much from what we can learn, helping conditions like poor eyesight to even as far as curing or at least delaying cancer. The IUCN lists it as a vulnerable species, even though data on it is, as you can imagine, for such an elusive species, data is quite limited. There's no proper extensive population studies ever been done. But population genetics do paint a disturbing picture. Genomic analysis, essentially seeing the variation in the gene pool, does seem to suggest that there is a long-term decline happening. There's just a lot less variation in their genes, which suggests they're not as far as inbreeding, but they're not as varied as they used to be. We live in such a world obsessed with speed, optimization, efficiency, but this little sleepyhead points such a different way forward. Slowing everything down, accepting huge imperfections, prioritizing endurance over performance. Somewhere beneath the Arctic ice right now, there's a shark that's older than modern science itself, just drifting through the dark. Not in a hurry, not in a fuss. Just quietly proving that life doesn't need to rush to make a difference. What a journey this has been. I have learned so much of this with you. I came into this thinking I knew a lot. How I didn't. I'm sorry for the length of this video. This was supposed to be a quick 10 minutes. Everything I looked up ended up being, well, that's insane. I've got to delve into that further. So here's what we've learned. They swim at a speed of less than half a mile an hour. They're little sleepyheads. They grow up to a centimetre a year, and they don't reach sexual maturity until age 150. They could potentially live up to 800 years old. They're perfectly designed animals to live for a long time in the freezing cold, with bodies filled with self-repairing DNA. Almost all of them have a parasite living in their eyes, but they can somehow see perfectly fine anyway. They eat everything from fish to polar bears to humans, and they can carry up to 600 eggs at one time, and their ovaries can weigh 80 kilograms. More than me. We've no real idea where they give birth, but they seem to spend their formative years around Scandinavia. Eating them could get you very, very drunk and having some hallucinations. And they are a truly unique link across space and time, unlike anything else on Earth. And despite all this, we've barely scratched the surface. We don't know where they mate, we don't know where they give birth, we don't know how long pregnancy lasts, we don't truly know how long they live. We don't know how many of them there are. Reliable photos have only started existing in the last 20 years. The Greenland shark has been here for truly millions and millions of years, but we've only started understanding them in about the last 10 years. Some answers are probably going to take longer than our human lifetimes to find. But somewhere in the dark, there's a little Greenland shark, a little sleepyhead, dreaming of that first date. Awkwardly fumbling with the shoelaces of some dead sunken human in the year 2200. This has been Jack with the Arctic Beyond. This has been such a pleasure to research, to study, to write for you. I hope you've had a really good time with this video. I hope you felt you've learned some cool things. Again, I'm sorry for the length of the video. As always, YouTube things, which I'm not good at. I'm obviously trying to grow this channel, but I'm not naturally good at it. I think I'm just good at talking about science. But YouTube things, if you want to help the channel, make sure to like, subscribe, comment. All of it really helps. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. Hope you stay safe, hope you stay warm. Hope you, live to 800 years old. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.